Take a closer look at what she aims to achieve. South Korea and Saudi Arabia agree to collaborate in new fields such as healthcare, transportation and housing, in addition to traditional sectors like construction and energy. Plus, Egyptian authorities have deployed a submarine to help search for the EgyptAir plane that crashed in the Mediterranean Sea on Thursday. Officials are still trying to find the plane's flight recorders. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello to our viewers around the world. It's 6 a.m. on Monday, May 23rd here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Broom. Our top story this morning, more details have been disclosed regarding President Park Geun-hye's upcoming trips to Africa and France as she prepares to depart on Wednesday. During her visits to Ethiopia, Uganda, Kenya and France, the South Korean leader will look to upgrade diplomatic and economic ties with those countries. Our presidential office correspondent Song Ji-sun starts us off.
Africa is seen as the last frontier in the world, boasting a robust growth rate of 5% in the 21st century and a population of 1 billion people. President Park's trip to Africa will take her to the capitals of Ethiopia, Uganda and Kenya, and set the groundwork to tap into the great potential of the continent.
By visiting the 3 biggest economies in East Africa, Seoul will strengthen cooperative partnerships and facilitate mutual growth in the region.
While assisting Africa with customized development plans, Seoul will also launch a new official development assistance project called Korea Aid, a truck enabling mobile healthcare and introduction to Korean culture. President Park will also become the first South Korean leader to deliver a speech at the African Union headquarters in Addis Ababa, allowing her to communicate Seoul's vision for the continent. Park will then head to Paris for a state visit marking 130 years of diplomatic relations with France. Presidents Park and Hollande will release a joint statement aimed at upgrading their comprehensive partnership for the 21st century, with the creative economy also expected to be a key focus.
Korea and France are optimal partners to realize a creative economy and cultural prosperity. The 2 countries will finalize deals to jointly foster new growth engines for the future.
President Park's visit to Africa will complete her global diplomacy map covering the Americas, Europe and the Middle East. During her travels, President Park will discuss North Korea's nuclear issues and ask for partner countries to implement sanctions on Pyongyang. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
South Korean Prime Minister Hwang is in Saudi Arabia. He told reporters in Jeddah on Sunday that the 2 nations plan to collaborate in new fields such as healthcare and housing, in addition to traditional sectors like construction and energy. Earlier in the day, he met with King Salman to discuss ways to build a future-oriented relationship. They agreed to ink 5 preliminary deals, including MOUs on transportation and energy cooperation. The Prime Minister added Saudi Arabia's push to transform itself into a knowledge-based society will open new business opportunities for the IT powerhouse South Korea. Before returning home on Tuesday, Prime Minister Hwang will travel to Turkey to attend the World Humanitarian Summit. There, he also plans to meet UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon to discuss both domestic and international issues. Back here in Korea, and a set of controversial labour reform bills are among the pending bills scheduled to be scrapped from the now closed 19th National Assembly. Korea's Labour Minister, however, says he will work to push for the re-legislation of the bills for the sake of the country's labour conditions. Shin Se-min with the details.
Korea's Labor Minister Lee Ki-kwon says he will push for legislation of a package of labor reform bills in the upcoming 20th National Assembly. Calling it a regrettable reality that many young Koreans are unable to find jobs, the minister said the political circles should share the burden of responsibility.
Reintroduction of the labor reform bills in Parliament will be a priority once the 20th National Assembly opens.
The set of labor reform bills include labor standards, employment insurance benefits, compensation for industrial mishaps, and contract terms for non-regular workers. The labor minister cited that the youth unemployment figure rose 100,000 in just 6 months after the labor reform agreements made by the tripartite committee in September last year, and said that unless there is a push for reform, that number will rise even more, pushing the nation's sons and daughters into a corner. In regards to the ongoing corporate restructuring of the country's shipbuilding and shipping industries, the minister said that government should shoulder responsibility and support laid-off workers by helping them gain re-employment to secure their livelihoods. He stressed the need to push for legislation of labor reform bills as they include support measures for corporate restructuring, which could provide the greatest benefit for employees from the shakeup. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Now, banks have begun reviewing a set of measures submitted by Korea's top 3 shipbuilders. Disposing of assets, cutting wages and laying off workers are some of the most likely scenarios. For a look into the changes that are going to have a massive impact on the ailing shipbuilding industry, Kwon Jang-ho reports.
The big 3 shipbuilders, Hyundai Heavy Industries, Daewoo Shipbuilding and Marine Engineering, and Samsung Heavy Industries, have laid out the second stage of restructuring plans to their creditors that is worth some $5 billion. The plans consist of a combination of company restructuring, selling of assets, and reduction of wages. For example, Daewoo is looking to sell off its defense industry arm, which produces military ships and submarines. They're also planning to sell their office building in downtown Seoul, already appraised at an estimated value of $150 million. Daewoo and Samsung are also looking to sell their floating docks. But sales could be difficult with the current global shipbuilding industry in recession and demand low. Hyundai has seen some 8,000 people leave the company through regular and voluntary resignation since 2015, but they're encouraging more to opt for early retirement packages in order to make further cuts to the wage bill. Daewoo and Samsung are also looking to reduce staff by about 1,000 each this year. There are concerns that the loss of assets and manpower would mean relinquishing their positions among some of the biggest shipbuilders in the world, and also hurt the companies in the long run, especially if the worldwide shipping industry recovers. But for now, the drastic changes are deemed necessary to stem the huge annual losses they are currently facing. Kwon Jang-ho, Arirang News.
The South Korean government plans to offer a package of support measures to compensate local firms affected by the shutdown of the Kaesong industrial complex. An official says an announcement could be made as early as this week. It's expected to cover losses for liquid assets such as finished products and raw materials, worth up to $80 million. The firms maintain that the losses are closer to $200 million and that total losses from the shutdown amount to almost $700 million. Seoul closed the inter-Korean joint factory on February 10th after North Korea carried out a 4th nuclear test and a long-range missile launch at the beginning of the year. South Korea's Vice Foreign Minister says North Korea's nuclear and missile provocations will be the greatest challenge that will determine the future relations between South Korea and China. Jo Tae-yeol's latest statement on Sunday indirectly highlights China's role in solving North Korea's continuing threats. Giving a speech at the East Asian Symposium of the World Forum on China Studies, Jo said that any changes could be overcome if Seoul and Beijing hold hands through sincere communication and cooperation. He stressed that developing and sustaining a mutual strategic cooperative relationship with China is one of South Korea's key foreign policy goals, as Beijing can contribute to maintaining peace on the Korean peninsula. G7 leaders are expected to ramp up their criticism of North Korea at their summit in Japan this week. According to Japan's Nihon Keizai Shimbun on Sunday, the G7 summit will release a joint statement condemning Pyongyang in the strongest terms over its nuke tests and missile launches. The Japanese daily says the warning will be stronger than the one issued at the previous G7 summit in Germany last year. that time, they adopted a joint statement that strongly condemned the North for its nuclear weapons development and serious human rights violations and abductions. The upcoming G7 summit will be held on Thursday and Friday in Japan's Mie Prefecture. Afghan Taliban leader Mullah Akhtar Mansour has been killed in a US drone strike in Pakistan. The first official confirmation from the country came from the Afghan National Security Directorate. The Pentagon also confirmed that an operation authorized by President Obama successfully took out the Taliban leader and another armed male combatant. Secretary of State John Kerry said Mansour had posed an immediate threat to US personnel. Mansour led the Taliban to briefly capturing the city of Kunduz last year. The leadership vacuum is expected to cause a major power struggle among top-ranking Taliban officials. Egypt has sent a submarine to help search for the missing EgyptAir plane that crashed into the Mediterranean Sea on Thursday with 66 people on board. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi announced on Sunday that equipment capable of reaching 3,000 meters underwater was being brought in from Egypt's offshore oil industry. He said that the robot submarine is heading to the plane crash site to try and salvage the flight's black boxes. French investigators revealed on Sunday that the missing plane sent a series of warnings indicating smoke had been detected on board shortly before it disappeared. Korea's continued support for cultural contents is starting to bear fruit now. The Culture Creation Convergence Belt is set to play a key role in ensuring the country's culture industry continues to grow and evolve. Composed of the Creative Centre for Convergence Culture in charge of planning and development, the Culture Creation Venture Complex is responsible for producing business as well as an academy tasked with nurturing new talent. In the process, the Centre for Convergence has created some 130 new jobs. The venture complex will begin programs for overseas promotions and financial support of local contents. The academy plans to join forces with IT startups to try and fuse art and science for their 2017 projects. And with the opening of the K-Culture Valley, K-Experience and K-Pop Arena, the entire belt is expected to generate even more jobs and generate as well tremendous revenue. Now, the Korean traditional liquor known as otchil was not only used to preserve crafts and buildings, it's also known to provide a nice finish for armour, given its strength. For more on how the product's durability may make it popular around the world someday, Kim Mo-kyun reports.
Otchil, as the traditional lacquer is known in Korean, was a common household item used during the Iron Age more than 2,000 years ago. Since then, Korean lacquer has been widely acknowledged for its high quality. It was used to cover objects made of wood, paper, bamboo, and even metal. After these objects were coated with lacquer, the finished product was long-lasting, water-resistant, and lustrous.
I think lacquer applied on the remains was the biggest contributor to the good quality.
Lacquer was not only used for daily supplies, but also in crafts and wooden buildings. Due to its firmness and durability, it was also used to coat armor and military supplies. An experiment to measure flame retardancy showed that a wood coated with chemical paint took 5.9 seconds to catch fire, while wood coated with diluted lacquer and traditional lacquer took 27.6 seconds and 30.4 seconds respectively. The use of lacquer has been emerging in various sectors ranging from automobiles, submarines, and electronic devices. It is highly anticipated that the outstanding traits of Korean traditional lacquer will soon be welcomed in the global market as well. Kim Mo-kyun, Arirang News.
Now, local researchers have developed a robot that can easily move in tight spaces and climb stairs. Modelled after the movements of an animal, the free-moving robot is expected to help in disaster scenarios. Park Se-young has the details.
Rescue operations in disaster zones come with a number of dangers, especially after nuclear accidents and earthquakes. Robots can be sent into such disasters, but experts pointed out the limited capabilities of machines. To solve this, Korean researchers created a robot which resembles an armadillo. The robot's small body of about 10 kilograms is an advantage before various obstacles. Just like an armadillo, which moves freely despite its hard shell, the robot can move through tight spaces and travel on sand. The key is in the origami-like wheels.
While traveling through tight spaces, the wheels can change shape to climb high steps.
A camera can be attached to the robot, and the artificial hand at the end of its flexible tail can pick up objects. This robot can not only be an alternative to sending human crews into disaster scenes, it is also expected to help in the exploration of harsh conditions. Park Se-young, Arirang News.
Well, that's all we have for now on this Monday morning here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broom. Thank you, as always, for watching. We'll be back throughout the day with more newscasts. Our next scheduled bulletin coming up at 10 a.m. Korea time. Have a great start to the week. Goodbye.